Welcome to another episode of Down the Barrel Podcast with Jimmy and Deano.
And sometimes Jared.
Down the Barrel Podcast is brought to you by the Minnesota Deer Hunters Association
and wolf.report. Wolf.report, a platform dedicated to elevating the voices of Minnesota hunters, trappers, and outdoor enthusiasts. Join us in advocating for responsible wolf management in Minnesota. Share your reports, photos, and stories, and together we will ensure that they are seen by all.
The Minnesota Deer Hunters Association, protecting the future of deer and deer hunting through habitat, education, advocacy, and legislation. All right, so today we're talking with Ryan Rothstein, right?
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
Thanks for having me, guys.
Yeah, thanks for coming up.
Making the drive all the way from St. Cloud area, right?
Yeah, happy to be here, man. Just live just west of St. Cloud, so it's nice to get up to the Northwoods now and then.
Yeah, but how long of a drive was that?
Just shy of 3. Not too bad.
Wow.
Dedication.
That is dedication. We appreciate it for sure.
Yes.
Well, I kept listening to your podcast, and I'm like, I got to see what these guys look like. Because if they look like they sound, I don't know.
He's never coming back.
Yeah, exactly. That is definitely a sketchy reason to come.
That's a sketchy reason. I'm kind of curious, though. What did you imagine Dean looked like?
Not like he does.
Right.
I don't know why. I don't know what I had in mind. But
Yeah, you thought he was like a better looking guy,
That's usually what happens when people only hear my voice.
To be fair, he's not wearing his tutu today.
That is true.
Sorry, it's not 4th of July.
Yeah. Yes,
I was thinking like some 6'5", maybe not bodybuild. Well, you guys are ranchers now, so
right? Exactly.
He does listen to the podcast.
We got us a
I'm not that full of shit. I might look like it, but
Gosh, he's definitely one of the 12?
I think we're up to 15.
Yeah, at least, yeah. Well, that's
So
awesome.
listen to the ranch edition.
That's
That's
right.
That's one
We're
of the
gonna
most
have another
popular
one.
ones.
well,
we
so
will.
this is what I couldn't figure out, man. You're from Kansas, right?
Yeah.
Dean?
Yep.
What in the hell are you doing here?
So
Love.
yeah. So I went to school in Wyoming, and so yeah. And everybody asked, well, how did you come to Wyoming? Why wouldn't you go to Wyoming?
Yeah.
I lived in southern Kansas, dude. And I was I was about an hour 20 out of Yellowstone. I was in Powell, over by Cody, about 30 minutes west of Cody, and did school there, photography for 3 years, and went back home. Couldn't find a photography job back home, and so I had a girl that was up here and found a job and moved up and been here ever since. So
That makes more
love
sense.
it up here. Yeah.
Well, I was thinking from the deer perspective. I'm like, if I was born and bred, southern
right.
Kansas,
You know,
zero
right.
chance I'm
Yeah,
coming up here.
exactly.
You know where
I
I,
did-
want to go for prime whitetail deer hunting? Northern
The
Minnesota.
Arrowhead.
Itasca County.
but what was funny is I didn't hunt a lot of deer back home. I mean, I didn't because by the time I got of age to hunt a whole lot, we had leased out the property
Oh, sure.
for out of state hunters, which
That's gotta be
obviously
pretty lucrative down there.
Which was that's what everybody did.
Oh, yeah.
So I didn't really hunt deer, I hunted birds and other stuff. But
What's the bird hunting like down there?
so where I was at, dove hunting was pretty good.
Quail too?
Yep, not as.
Probably not
The
quite as
quail
good as
kinda
like
came
Texas,
in, but-
Oklahoma.
Right, exactly.
Sure,
Yep,
sure.
they were still coming north, but yeah, dove was probably the best. Quail a little bit. You get a little bit further north, you definitely get into pheasant because
Sure.
there was more corn, kind of that soybean farm country and stuff like that. So. But yeah, that's kind of what we did, and a lot of coon hunting and a little bit of predator.
okay.
So yeah, and actually Jim was the one that got me into bow hunting.
Oh, okay.
So that's kind of.
And then
Yeah, it's kinda
I
that.
think the first year we went hunting together, I shot a buck. It was a nice 8-pointer.
It was a nice
I was
8.
proud of it. I think it might have been my biggest buck to that point.
Yeah.
And I take him his first year out bow hunting, and he shoots his monster. And I have to help him find it and drag it out of the woods. And I still
Yep.
don't like him for that. But
Yeah, pretty much. And it sat in your garage.
it did for like, 5, 6, 7 years.
I want to say almost 10.
The antlers.
Nice.
Yeah.
And then,
I
right.
hope you're not talking to me.
No.
Is that the jerky you fed me before we started?
you ate
Pretty much,
some, bud.
yeah. And then, I took it out of your garage and I had it mounted. And
Yeah,
It's-
that's a beautiful deer.
everybody always, when I pointed out in the house, was like, yep, that's my Kansas deer, which was a nice 13 point. He was a younger deer, but he was a
Right.
nice deer. And then I said, this is my Minnesota. Like, why? How? and it is one of the nicest deer.
Oh, it's a beautiful deer.
It's gorgeous.
And to this day, you know, he hasn't allowed me to hunt deer in Kansas. He lets me hunt coyotes.
Yeah.
Well, he's just trying to get more deer for himself.
I
You know,
know,
he's
yeah.
using you.
He is using me.
I'm hoping to go back this. I'm going back this December, and I'm hoping to bow hunt.
Well, you should.
Yeah.
I feel better though, man, because it was just burning all the way up here. Like something's not right with this guy.
Right?
He's
Well,
That is that. There's nothing more truthful than that.
Yeah, that's for sure.
Trust your instincts.
I'm surprised he didn't just turn around.
Right.
You know?
Right.
You notice where he's sitting, right? He's as far from you.
That is true. That is true.
There's something wrong with that Kansas guy coming up here.
But enough about me.
that's
we're
my
here
bad.
Yeah,
No,
no, we're here to talk about you,
Yeah, we
Ryan.
are.
So, where do you come from, and kind of your background?
Yeah.
And then I know you spent some time in Texas, A&M, right?
Yes, sir. Not the Aggies. No,
okay.
they're strange folk. No, man. So yeah, I grew up in central Minnesota, born and raised, and somewhere there's a picture of me at like a year or two old, when in my dad's arms, just staring up at the deer in the garage. Like, if you grew up deer hunting in Minnesota, it seems like almost everybody's got a story like that, where whether it's the meat pole or in somebody's garage. And man, back then, you know, in the 90s, especially 80s, 90s, they all get together at the end of the day and big meal and drinking beer and whatever.
Yep.
But man, I cut my teeth on that. And I think my dad and grandpa had me out in the woods, like not hunting, of course. We didn't have a youth season, or back
Right.
then the minimum age was still 12.
Yep.
Right.
But no, they had me sitting with them. I think the first time I was like 6. So God bless them, because I'm sure it sucked for them, man. Like, where are the deer? Why are we sitting here? You know, like,
Yep.
even then I was a pain in the pain in the ass, but God bless them, because it's put me where I am. And you know, as I kind of grew older, I read and read and read. You know, we didn't have YouTube and things like that. I mean, the video and podcast resources that are out there now, man, like, it's a good time to be a young hunter.
Yeah.
Because there is so much information
Right.
everywhere.
Yep.
But back then, it was primarily like your deer and deer huntings, your bow hunting magazine, outdoor news, you know, all that stuff. I remember I still have somewhere a couple copies of Gary Clancy's books, and that dude's word was gospel to me, man. Like, he was just one of the best and just a class act. But as I got older, it just kind of led down this road of like, I need to learn everything I can about these animals so that I can hunt them better. And at some point, you know, I started going to school for it. Got my undergrad degree from Minnesota State University, Moorhead, just a biology degree. And then I ended up going down to Texas for grad school, and it was on a deer project, and it was the coolest shit I've ever done to this day. I mean, you're talking classic South Texas deer management with capturing deer with helicopters and net guns, and like, it's everything you've ever read and heard and seen about South Texas. It's such a totally different world, man. But it was really cool. And yet at the same time, like, it really changes your perspective from like a habitat manager and like even a deer hunter. I mean, I grew up hunting here and a little bit in Wisconsin. So used to hunting that mix of farm and ag and some big woods too, but nothing like that brush country, man. I mean, I remember the first time that I was on a deer capture and I see the helicopter going over. The brush is just a wall. Like, it's painful trying to go through it, man. Like, picture the worst buckthorn infested woods you've ever seen. And it's that and then some, because there's cactus too. And I just remember thinking, there is no way in hell there's going to be a single deer in there. There can't be. How could they move through that? Oh, there's a hell of a lot of deer in that. So
crazy.
And after that, I came back up here, been doing pretty much habitat management, land management ever since. And I've really tried to start applying like the ecological concepts to deer management, not necessarily deer management, but the habitat, you know, like how can I make the best deer habitat and the best deer hunting possible, but still have some benefit for all the rest too, like all the other critters. And it's kind of interesting, like how much of the stuff overlaps, you know, like it's not just what's good for deer is generally good for a lot of other things too. So that's why, you know, I've become I kind of got roped into it on the front end, but Pheasants Forever, man, I better be careful, you know.
That's all right.
We're good friends with the folks
Yeah,
over
I
there.
mean, they do so much good, and they've got, you know, a long-standing army of support, so they've got the infrastructure to do it. But honestly, they've done more. Pheasants Forever has done more good work for deer habitat and deer hunting in this state than almost any other organization other than MDHA, of course.
right.
But
There you go.
no, honestly, man, it's amazing how good of deer habitat pheasant habitat can be.
Right. Yeah.
So that's kind of what I get my kicks from is, you know, just how can I make the best habitat for everything? Because generally speaking, it all benefits everything.
Yeah. No, well, and I'm glad you brought up Pheasants Forever because there are so many great conservation organizations, and we work with them all the time. You know, when we're doing a grant project or a habitat restoration project, we're usually partnered with a Pheasants Forever, a Rough Grouse Society, a Rocky Mountain Elk Foundation, because it's true. You know, what we do for whitetail deer, it's good for the grouse, it's good for the pheasants, it's good for the elk in the northwestern part of the state.
Right.
How much time do we have? Because I could go for a while about that one. The fact that we only have elk in that part of the state is just a travesty, man.
Well, it's soon to change.
Yeah. Supposed to be in
Let's
the
hope.
Northeast pretty
Right.
quick. Yeah, because you were just up and at a meeting for that, and that was just in Outdoor News this last issue.
How did that go? Actually, I had heard about that, but I just couldn't make it up to that.
Yeah.
I was curious how that went.
Yeah, you know, it was interesting. So there was the public elk meeting that evening,
Okay.
which was okay. You know, we got a solid update from Kelsey
Lashar.
Lashar. Sorry, Kelsey. I do remember you.
She's new there. It's not your fault.
She is new. That's right. But no, we got a really good update on, you know, where the elk herd in the northwestern part of the state has been, what the population goals are for the different herds within the region, and then a little bit about this potential reintroduction over in the Arrowhead region. But what I thought was great about that day was earlier on, from like 8 to 3, I think it was, we actually got to tour Thief Lake WMA.
Oh, cool.
So myself and a number of other partners, so like Rocky Mountain Elk Foundation was there, and I can't remember who all was there, and then a bunch of DNR representatives. And we got to look at all of these different grant projects that had been completed within the Thief Lake WMA. And at each stop, the organization who was the lead on that project got to talk about what it was, why they did it.
So in other words, though, this has been like a huge, like cross-agency, cross-organizational partnership up there.
Exactly. And yeah, so like, you know, I got to talk about a grant that we had done for woody browse regeneration along, I believe it was the south shore of Thief Lake. And, you know, as I'm talking, it's like I can't fully talk about this project and what it means without also bringing in Rocky Mountain Elk Foundation, because they were pivotal in us being able to do this work, and they consulted on the work, and, you know, they wanted to make sure that it benefited the elk as much as it benefited the deer. And then you walk, I think we drove a quarter mile, and now we're into this ruffed grouse management area, you know, and it's like we've got all these species right here, and we're applying what seemingly are very different management strategies on these different parcels. But we're in this grouse habitat and we're seeing deer, you know.
Well, and not to mention, like you're saying, like all these different organizations with supposedly different goals, you know, that all kind of coalesce into this one area, and everything benefits.
Right. And that's, you know, like we do all have our own mission statements or our goals, right? But like you were saying, what you do for one species tends to benefit all, or at least many species.
And I think that's something that's so often lost, is that habitat aspect. I mean, I bang this drum every chance I get, man, but we used to have 18 million acres of prairie, some like 30 or 40 million acres of woods. We've lost 99% of that prairie. We've lost 40% of that woods. It doesn't seem like it up here, but boy, you get down to my neck of the woods, I see it every day. And why do you think things aren't as good as they used to be? I mean, I get it for the general public because they don't work in that. They don't live in that like hunters do. But even among hunters, sometimes I just see such a disconnect with what we're seeing while we hunt and the quality and quantity of the habitat on the ground.
Exactly.
Yep.
Right.
Well, then that extends to, people maybe not seeing the grouse, the deer, any wildlife, and some of them just don't realize that it's the habitat that they're in.
Exactly.
You haven't done anything, especially, private land. You haven't done anything to help increase your habitat to get these animals back or adapt over time.
I cannot tell you how many times in my neck of the woods. So I live in kind of that transitional area where it's that mix of, eastern hardwoods and farm country. So often do I see a deer stand on the edge of a crop field that's right up next to a WMA because there are 0 square feet of habitat on that private land.
Yep.
And I'm like, why do you think the deer are over here?
Yep.
I don't know. It just gets frustrating because there's such a huge gap there. And I'm going to throw a disclaimer in here. I have never been employed by the Minnesota Department of Natural Resources. I do not currently work for them. I would say that I am generally supportive of them because they do far more good work than the general public ever sees.
Yep.
And it's amazing how often I hear them just totally getting shit on for things that are so far beyond even their control. I mean, there are so few things. Again, this is not a great area of the state up here in Grand Rapids to make this comparison, but like down in my neck of the woods, if even 3% of the land base is public land, that's probably about it.
Yeah.
How much can you honestly influence actual animal populations on 3% of the land base?
Right.
You're hamstrung.
No, you're absolutely right. And the DNR does get drugged through the mud quite a bit
every day,
every single day. And, a lot of it, like you said, is unjustified. If we look at the wolf issue, for example, MDHA has been very outspoken over the years about how we need to return management of our wolf population back to the state of Minnesota, have a wolf hunting and trapping season again. People blame the DNR that we can't do that
every single day.
What you're talking about, one state agency in one state going up against a federal policy that they are actually prohibited from lobbying against.
I just saw this today, actually, and I don't know if this is like it just came out today or not, but the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service did file suit to try to overturn that most recent relisting again.
Yes.
Right.
But to the point, though, until that happens, DNR legally cannot do anything.
Can't do anything.
And this is something that I didn't realize until I started listening to your podcast here, but I didn't realize the shit you guys were getting about like being pro wolf and like, just tree hugging, wolf loving. Like,
oh man,
that's right.
I'm like, what organization out there is pushing harder for wolf management? Because
since day one.
I mean, I just don't understand it.
They clearly found out that I run a wolf petting zoo on the side, right? So if you're going to be up here for a few days, let me know.
I'd love to see it. Yeah, it'd be great.
You can come over. You can cuddle some wolves.
Yeah, we get it every day. Email, social media. We get people that come in. I mean, we had an email the other day. That was about wolves, and it's like, when are you going to start doing something about wolves?
Yes, our nonprofit organization is going to get right on that.
Well, I wanted to respond with, are you a member? Do you know what we've done? I mean, just let's look at the facts. Quit listening to all the social media hate and yahoos. Just, if you want to hear straight from the horse's mouth, just contact us legitly, and we'll tell you what's straight up.
Well, when we get those questions, I just started responding with links to like an article from 1994 of our executive director out in Washington D.C. holding up like a wolf management sign.
Right. Yep.
Like there is so much evidence that we've been working on this for years, and anyone who doesn't believe that is
drank the Kool-Aid.
Ignorant.
They're ignorant.
Well, it kind of becomes this broader societal problem of truth is whatever you want it to be right now.
Right.
You know,
for
like
sure.
you don't have to give a shit if it's actually real or not. If you want it to be true, it can be.
I saw it on Facebook.
Yeah.
It's real.
That's right.
That it's
Well, we kind of heard some of that today.
We did. Oh,
I mean, we had a
man,
gentleman
did.
stopping today, and we heard how horrible the DNR was.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, yep. And it's like, okay, let him speak his piece, and
Right.
and one spectrum to the next, and
Yeah.
whatever. It's like, all right. It's like, just and you want to say to people, do you really believe that?
I know.
Do you really think that the DNR don't want to manage, let's say, wolves? Do you really think they don't want to?
Right.
It says, what
How many
benefit-
fewer headaches
really-
would they have?
Right.
What benefit do they get from not?
Right.
Yeah. That'd be like me saying, Dean, I know you run our merchandise and our sales at the store, and I want you to manage all of that, but I don't want you to have a thing to do with the guns. You don't get to sell those. You don't get to touch them. You don't even look at them.
Yeah.
All right. I mean, how are you going to feel
But
about
you're
that?
responsible.
But you're responsible. You know, when we see our sales at the end of the year, I want you to be in the
Right.
That's a really good analogy, though.
What?
right. Like nobody's going to do that.
Yeah.
But it goes back to what we were just saying, like, you know, you guys getting so much shit and just trying to point them to the like you said, just call. But
Right.
I ask people this all the time. Do you know your DNR area wildlife manager by name?
Right.
Do you know how to get a hold of them? Because I know I know probably the 3 in the area that I hunt, the areas that I hunt most frequently. Like, if you don't even know who these people are, you can sit there and talk shit all day long, but you have no idea what they're like. And
Right. What they actually care about. Yeah.
I've been fortunate that I've been able to either meet or work with a lot of different DNR wildlife managers. These people know their shit.
Yeah.
They are across the board some of the most passionate and smartest ecologically based like wildlife managers that I've ever seen. And if I would be willing to bet if you could anonymously poll them, the vast majority are going to say, yeah, we'd love to manage wolves.
Oh yeah.
But I mean, there again, like, it's so easy to sit behind the keyboard and say, you know, do nothing right. They don't know what they're doing. But
Right.
I mean, even big game program leader Barb Keller, like,
Yeah.
I talk to her a couple times a year, and I'd be lying to you if I said I agree with everything DNR does. Like, I don't generally agree with some of the stuff they do. But what good is it going to do me to just go in, you know, shouting and screaming with the pitchforks out and go, Barb, you're doing everything wrong.
Right.
Because
well, especially when if you talk to Barb for 5 minutes,
yeah,
you immediately know this woman's a lot smarter than me.
dude. Yes. She did not get that job by accident.
Right.
Like, she's very, very intelligent, and she cares. Like, if you come in with a level head and reasonable questions, like if you're actually willing to have a conversation,
Right, and
she'll give you
open-minded,
all the time in the day.
Yep.
Well, and that's the funny thing is, you know, we get these, and you get it with every state, and then every state organization. I remember seeing out in Wyoming with the, you know, with those managers, or we have in Kansas with Kansas Fish and Wildlife. People just, it's the hate authority and hate the rules. It's like, do you honestly think the DNR, they don't want to manage every species to the best of their ability?
Right.
Do you really, I mean, think in the back of your head, do you really think that the DNR can do nothing right? They don't even want to manage the deer. They're trying to take him away from us, blah, 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 this and that. It's like, is that truly what you think, that they're just out there for the money? I mean, if that's the case,
They're not out there for the money.
No.
Right. They don't make that
come
much
on.
money.
It's like, really, I just don't understand how people even think that in the first place.
Well, and what's frustrating to me is, like, if you've met even a couple of them, they care more about their work than you do. I promise you that.
Oh, yeah.
Like, it means something to them.
Right.
Like, they are very passionate about the work they do. And honestly, I would challenge just about anybody that's super anti-DNR that thinks they care. Go into your DNR office and talk to them, because I'm going to bet they care more than you do.
Yeah. Well, it's the same with MDHA. Do you not think that we're there for the hunter, for the deer, you know, population, for everything? That's what I don't get. You know, you guys aren't doing enough. Okay, please tell me what we can do more of.
Right.
Right.
There's only 24 hours in a day, man.
And I would love to be able to write federal policy, but
Right. That would be
unfortunately,
so much
that
easier,
is-
right?
Yeah.
That's not in my job description.
Can't you make the laws? Come on.
Yeah.
I wish.
Jeez, if
I
you can.
wish.
Really?
Yeah, but you just need to scream more. Tell people what you hate more.
You're right.
Go on YouTube and do your research.
Right? That's the best place.
Man.
Everybody knows.
Yeah, that's for sure.
So, Ryan, you been out doing any archery hunting yet?
This is embarrassing for me to say, but no, I haven't. I think this is the only time in my life that I haven't bought my archery license prior to the start of the season. And it's just been so warm this year. I mean,
man.
it kind of has the last few falls, really.
Right.
Yeah.
Yep.
I don't know, just between different habitat projects I've had going on and, I mean, I'm still writing for Outdoor News and all that too. So just a lot going on in the heat. I'd rather just wait till it's cooler.
So do you write for Outdoor News on the weekly?
It is. So right now my column is every other week.
Okay.
Especially as we get into this time of the year, I'll usually kick in, like on my off weeks, I'll just kick in a contributing column just because, well, it's deer season. People want to read about deer. So,
Right.
Yep.
Right.
but no, I really enjoy that, man. And it was a little intimidating to me at first. I've always loved writing, but man, when somebody like Gary Clancy and Tony Peterson had that column before you, it's like, wow, how
deal.
bad can I shit the bed on this? You know?
Right. No, I think you do really well.
Yeah.
Well, I hope so. It's like, I don't know if anybody actually reads it or gets anything from it, but I'm not trying to act like I know anything or everything or anything in between, but it's just, I've tried to take a little bit different tack with it. Like, yeah, the deer hunting is still important, but trying to draw some of those connections between, even if all you care about is deer hunting, pay attention to the habitat.
Yeah.
I don't care if you don't ever touch the habitat, but it will make you a better deer hunter.
That's right.
Well, absolutely. Yeah, I think my initial interest in having an interview with you was, I think it was last fall. You wrote an article about wolves.
Oh, yeah.
And what I liked about it, not anything in specifically, but the way you went about it. You were level-headed, open-minded, and I mean, it was facts, scientific data. It wasn't feelings, and that's what we hear so much now.
Oh, man.
Yep.
That's all you hear, it seems like. And, when it comes down to it, actually, I'm glad to hear you say that, because when you first reached out and I kind of did a little background, I'm like, oh, this is going to be a shitstorm.
They're going to attack me and ask me all sorts of questions.
And I remember when I submitted that article to Tim Spielman, the editor from Outdoor News, he's like, do you got a burner email I can send all the hate mail to? I'm like, yeah, we'll find something. But no, man, I mean, here's my biggest thing in pretty much all of life. And maybe this is a character flaw of mine. I don't give a shit about almost anything. Like, pick anything in life, I probably don't give a shit about it.
Right.
I just don't. I care about deer.
Right.
I care about deer and I care about my wife. And beyond those two things, well, that's about it.
It's all good.
And so, like, I'm not going to sit here. I don't give a shit who you want to vote for this fall. I do not care. I could not. I have zero time for you if that's what you want to talk about. And I'm not going to sit there and argue with you. But if it's like one of the two things that I care about, I will absolutely have a conversation with you, and I will absolutely be coming prepared to bat because, like you said, man, it's so easy to get down the vortex of shit talking and just total emotion, zero fact to it.
Right.
And
I feel.
Well, this is why it's bad because I said, give me a reason.
Exactly.
Right.
Exactly.
So, who are you going to vote for this fall?
White-tailed deer.
Right in here.
Now, Jimmy actually has a great sign up in his office right now.
Right.
What is it? Venison and backstraps?
Venison and backstraps 24.
The best one, I'm sorry if you guys have to cut this, but the best one that I saw was a sticker somebody had on their car and it said poo poo PP 2024.
That's a good one.
Maybe that's just my childish sense of humor, but that one, I'm like, I think that's a message
I
we can
care
all go
about that one as much as I do any other one. That's what I look at.
What were we talking about? We were going to be joint senators, right?
Right? Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah. You guys were going to
We're going to be the first joint senators.
Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah, exactly.
Like, sew the two of you together.
Well,
That'd be interesting.
That would be yeah. We'll see what we can do.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean,
you
I
could
won't get
probably,
into politics, but
just take over Dean's district.
For sure.
somebody
it needs
needs
help.
to.
Dude, that would be the best place for both of us, honestly. Yeah.
Yeah. Well,
So Outdoor News, and you recently did an article on the lottery.
Yeah.
Yeah, the ENRTF.
Oh,
Yeah, 'cause
yes. Thank you.
I'm
Yeah.
actually,
Thank you for doing that article.
I'm
Yes.
ignorant when it comes to that. You guys know more. I read the article. I don't read very good.
He's from Kansas.
Yeah. So you guys need to fill me in on that because I also have a sidebar on that too. So
Sure.
But I appreciate you, writing the article on it. So
Yeah, I read it
I'd say
yesterday.
Jared, you go first on it and kind of give me MDHA's perspective because I think your perspective and mine might be a little different on it and not in a bad way.
Yeah, absolutely. So ENRTF, it's the Environmental Natural Resources Trust Fund. Basically, it is lottery funding that goes right back into conservation in the state of Minnesota. It is up for renewal this year. It will be a ballot measure. So when you go to vote this year, which early voting starts tomorrow?
Oh, wow.
Does it really?
Already?
I believe it does.
Jeez, wow.
I know, right?
Well, then my timing was okay at least.
Oh, I thought it was
I was
dead
going
on.
to wait. I'm glad I didn't.
Yeah. So that will be a ballot measure. You will have a question on there. Do you want to renew the lottery funding?
Well, so that's the one thing, though, that kind of tripped me up when I was doing a little research for that piece. I assumed that was going to be the ballot language. Mm-hmm. No, it's not. It's not. And that kind of threw me, man, because I feel if it was like, do you want to renew this?
Right.
It'd be an easier sell.
Yeah.
But the way it's worded is almost identical to what the original amendment back in 88 said.
Correct.
Yeah.
And so it does almost sound like it's something new. And that's something that we're trying to really get the word out there. Mm-hmm. The way it's worded, it almost sounds like it could be a tax increase. It is not.
No. Okay.
You will not see a change to your finances whatsoever.
Unless you gamble more.
Unless you gamble like my little brother does.
Right.
He's going to spend some more money for conservation, which is great.
Is he going to vote yes?
I'm going to make it. But the one thing that I do want to make clear is on that ballot, it will ask you yes or no. Do you want to approve this lottery funding to go back to conservation in the state of Minnesota? Or it will ask you no. If you do not answer that ballot question, it counts as a no vote. So if you want to see that funding be renewed, please vote yes.
Yeah. So if you're an outdoorsman, fisherman, vote yes.
Yes. I mean, I'm on a coalition right now to try to really push to get yes votes on this measure. And I mean, we're talking MDHA, Pheasants Forever, Trout Unlimited, Backcountry Hunters and Anglers, Rough Grouse Society. I mean, all of them, right? We're all pushing for this same thing. This funding has allowed us to do a lot of amazing work around the state of Minnesota. And as Ryan actually pointed out in that piece he wrote, this is the funding that started off our Hides for Habitat program at MDHA.
Right.
You know,
No way.
which is a great program. Over $6 million has been raised through that program alone. That's gone right back to Minnesota Habitat. So
that funding actually multiplies
exactly.
other funding.
Oh, absolutely.
Exactly. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And I think it's a big, important distinction to make, too, that I think I tried to close the piece off with this, but it doesn't matter if you're a deer hunter, duck hunter, bear hunter, pheasant hunter, walleye fisherman, trout fisherman, hiker, kayaker, canoer, boater.
Blueberry picker.
Exactly. Mm-hmm. I think you could draw a line to almost every Minnesotan from this funding over the past 35 years. Absolutely. It has impacted every single one of us in a positive way through one project or another.
Absolutely. So it's an important source of funding if you're passionate about conservation. So I highly encourage you to vote yes on that ballot measure.
And I've, just from my perspective with it, I'm glad you started, Jared, because you kind of laid out what's going on to pass it right now. But this is coming from a habitat manager perspective. I've been fortunate to work on a few projects that have been funded with this trust through the ENRTF. It is doing wonders for the habitat. I mean, there have been so many prairie restoration projects, so many reforestation projects. I mean, water quality projects. It is legitimately putting better habitat on the ground. Right. And I don't care if that's happening on public land or private land. Every acre matters.
So is that like that money comes from like somebody's buying scratch offs in front of you at the gas station?
Yeah.
So we all hate those people, right?
They take forever.
They take forever. But why not take some of their money and make our hunting and fishing better?
Exactly.
right.
So vote
That's
yes.
right. Yep.
Right? I mean, I can't stand those people. I mean,
Oh, it drives me nuts, dude.
me too. Especially when they're like cashing in and stuff.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Here's
And
my,
they buy more.
here's my
Buying
biggest
more.
problem. I'm not thinking about ENRTF when I'm seeing them do that. I'm just like, you son of a bitch. You
I
couldn't
go into
wait.
the gas station, like one right across the street here, every time. Every time. I'm like, I'm sitting here, I need ice. I got to get back to the
Yeah.
studio.
Yeah.
And there's somebody doing that. And I'm like,
And 15 minutes later,
every
you're still there.
time.
Yeah.
I'm
I feel like we need to make a law. I'm going to find a sponsor to write this.
Let's
bill.
give them their own
You-
kiosk.
Well, that'd be
Boom.
great.
Only
Or
online.
Sure, buy your scratch offs, but you are not allowed to scratch them at the counter.
Yeah.
Right.
You need to walk
I've
away.
seen
yeah,
that
you go to federal
scratch
prison
'em.
if you scratch them at the counter.
Go scratch them and then get your ass back in line if
Yeah.
you want to cash them in. But you don't get to scratch
You don't
them
get to
there.
do the whole process in front
That's
of me while I
right.
want to pay for my ice that's,
That's
melting in my
right. Yeah,
hands.
my coffee that's getting cold.
Right.
Anyways,
Well, I'm glad you guys-
ENRTF.
Yeah.
What do
Let's
you got on
review
there,
that.
you know?
I do. So I've read a few things on our lovely social media, and this is, I'm not going to read the whole thing, but I'll kind of see if I can summarize it best I can. So this is from,
I believe it's.
I'll just say it's from one of my favorite senators. Those who listen to us know who it is. And so what this gentleman states is the ENRTF. Currently, 40% of lottery proceeds go to the account, and this question will ask if voters would approve of a constitutional amendment that reauthorizes this process for 25 years, right? We all agree that. So, goes on to say this has been a popular initiative in the past, but things have gotten out of control. The ballot question goes far beyond its original bounds. The LCCMR, this did a lot of big words for me. So, Legislative Citizens Commission of Minnesota Resources already decides what projects are funded through the ENRTF, and the legislature approves those projects that are picked. Okay, so the new iteration would take the legislator completely out of the equations. Legislators would have no say in it.
Sounds like a great idea.
Honestly, yeah.
That in turn takes the people's voice away. False.
You want to know what does take the people's voice away?
Yeah.
My former representative before redistricting kept trying to shoehorn municipal well water treatment into this shit.
Oh, look at that.
Yeah.
I bet it's this guy.
Another paragraph down, the new process would prevent funding from going to important projects like water pollution, city water discharge, public water issues,
Oh,
and
this
so
wouldn't
on.
happen to be
We like to call him.
Terry, what the
No,
hell?
this is too far north.
This is
Okay.
Richard.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
But anyways,
We like to call
yeah, they don't support this and blah blah blah. So what I'm seeing is they say it takes away the voice of the legislators from the people. I want to say disagree with
I'm
that.
going to say bullshit on that in the
Yeah.
first place because the LCCMR, the Legislative Citizens Commission of Minnesota Resources, is not all politicians.
correct.
boom.
Is it half of the commission is
Correct.
citizen?
Yep. And then half are legislators.
Right.
And so typically on this podcast, when we're talking about, comments or what
from this
about different people,
Yeah.
we refrain from saying names.
Right.
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 But I think as soon as you become an elected official, that rule goes out the window.
All right.
Can I say something?
Are we talking about Senator Steve Green?
Yes. Sir.
Oh,
I wanted to.
Mr. Green, yeah.
Yeah. He's my favorite.
Yeah. So
I thought his name was Dick. It's not. Oh, it's Steve.
Steve
Okay.
Green.
Yeah,
Yes.
I met that guy
Yeah.
down at
Did you?
down the hill
Yeah,
last
God,
year,
that's a day that'll
Yeah.
live.
and that's probably where I got that from.
Yeah.
That would make sense. I can't
Yeah,
imagine he's any more pleasant in person than his
gotta
than
be-
his comments.
He is definitely. He's
He's your
public-
representative, isn't he, Dean?
He is,
Or
and
senator,
he
whatever
is all for nothing public, all
So
private.
going back to that,
But anyways.
that elk meeting that I was just up in Thief River Falls for, we had this public portion of the meeting that evening, and Senator Green showed up. And we were talking about this research project that the DNR is trying to conduct on our elk populations, and Senator Green stepped in and basically gave his 2 cents on how we shouldn't trust the DNR. We shouldn't fund any of this research, all of that.
Which, just to give a little background to the project, is a really cool project.
It's an
by the
amazing
way.
project.
They're looking to put GPS collars on a bunch of elk among these different populations to actually study habitat use, study life history characteristics. Like, how are these elk surviving? Where are they living? What are they doing?
Yeah.
I mean, if you're a hunter and you legitimately care about the research, what is your beef with that?
Right. Who are you going to trust? Scientists or the politician? Come on.
Right.
Come on, Minnesota. We know who to trust.
And so Senator Green, he gave his little spiel, and then he said, but on that note, I actually have to head out. And he left the room.
Right.
Classic.
And then this younger gentleman down to my right stood up, and he basically turned around to the whole room and he said, I don't know if any of you know who that was that just spoke, but that was Senator Green. I've lived in his district my entire life. And that guy just hates public land.
He hates it. He made that abundantly clear when we met with him.
Yep. And then he said, I don't think in my time of following politics, I've ever seen him vote yes on a single bill other than his own pay raise.
Weird.
That's crazy.
I think you said that today, that you looked up his record and it's all no's, right? For everything.
So Jed looked it up and it was a lot of no's.
It's hard to find a yes in there.
And I'm sorry, I don't care how ardent of a 2A supporter you are. If you are a hunter and you are voting for that guy, you are hurting all of us.
Right.
So as a nonprofit, we don't endorse candidates.
Right.
We can endorse policies, but I would say that this is a candidate that does not agree with supporting public land.
He votes for deer farmers more than he votes for deer hunters.
He'll straight up tell you he hates public land.
Oh, for sure. He'll straight up tell you he doesn't like MDHA.
Oh, yeah. He straight up told us that.
Well, because we're in the public land grant.
Right.
Because of our Highs for Habitat program, which in his mind doesn't do anything good for us.
Oh, that's
anything
cute.
good for the state of Minnesota.
Right.
I beg to differ, sir.
Yeah.
So how much private, is he a hunter? I believe he claims to be.
Claims.
How much private land does he have access to? Because he clearly has some.
He must have.
He's got to have.
Decent amount.
Like
You don't shit on public lands like that if you're hunting on them.
like we've concluded, we have a feeling that there is some other public land in his area, or that was going to become private. Maybe one of our chapters or something became, turned into a WMA, or the DNR came in, something along those lines. We're not exactly sure. We're speculating.
Some background but hurt there.
There is, for sure. Yep. So, but
I'm going to steal that phrase, by the way. I like that.
Yeah. But at any rate, the lottery is a good thing.
Yeah. Moral of the story, Senator Green is wrong. Public lands are one of the, I would say, biggest assets that we have, especially here in the state of Minnesota.
Absolutely.
And we should do everything we can to ensure that we have funding to allow them to thrive and expand in the future.
Exactly.
Right. Because that is Minnesota.
I don't think people realize how spoiled we are here. I mean, we have 2 dedicated funding sources for natural resources and habitat.
Yep.
I don't think there's another state that has that. Missouri has dedicated funding, but I believe I couldn't find anything to the contrary when I was researching that piece, but I think we are the only 2 states in the entire country that have dedicated fund pools for conservation.
Right.
Right.
Yeah, it's pretty amazing, and it's something that we need to fight to keep. So,
Well, we can't take it for granted. I mean, you said it, Dean. That is Minnesota. It is. We have cleaner water than most places. We have a lot better habitat than most places. It may not always seem like it, but we do, and that's not by accident.
No.
Yeah.
Well, and growing up in Kansas, it was private land.
Yeah.
I mean, the only public land you had were for pheasant hunting. I mean, it was, CRP ground that was brought back that, the ranchers, farmers got paid to turn it into CRP and whatever else, but it was mainly pheasant. You do watch videos where these guys go on these public land hunts in Kansas. It's all CRP ground, and they get lucky and they find a buck laying down in it, and sometimes they'll harvest it, but most times not. But public land, at least where I was at, Unit 16 in Kansas, it's unheard of.
Yeah.
It was all private. So when I came up here, public land hunt, it was a culture shock.
You can damn near throw a baseball and hit public land up here.
you're
It was
back
a
door.
culture shock to hunt up here. It's like, what do you mean? I can just hunt anywhere in 3,000 acres. It's like, what? I can do whatever I'm not do whatever I want, but I can hunt anywhere as long as nobody else kind of claims it. I did have my run-ins on public land the
you
first
always
couple years.
do.
hunting.
Everybody does.
And and I was discouraged here and there. And it's like, oh, dude, I got to find some land. Well, I still don't have the opportunity to buy my own land or enough to hunt on and make it, what I want it to be.
Yeah.
So I cherish the public land hunting and that ability.
Right.
So
And that's the thing is, you don't own your own land, but you do. You own that public land.
Yep.
Right.
Every single person in the state of Minnesota is a landowner.
And that is a pretty uniquely American thing.
It's insane.
Right.
It is.
It's insane. And it's something that we should pride ourselves in, and it's something that we should fight to keep and to expand into the future.
Yeah,
and that's
sure.
that's what MDHA is here to do. That's what a lot of great organizations are here to do. And
That's why you should vote yes on your
yes.
ballot.
Absolutely.
Yes.
Well, and I'll tie this in. So the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Wetland Management District manager in my area has a fantastic saying that I'm going to try to not butcher for him. He gets asked all the time, when is enough when it comes to how much land do you need to own, fish and wildlife? When is enough? And his response, I won't say this is verbatim, but I'll try to get close, is when there is enough clean water that we don't have to worry about clean water anymore, when there's enough habitat that we don't have to worry how pheasant numbers or duck numbers or pollinator numbers or deer numbers are doing, when everybody has a place they could hunt without bumping shoulders with each other, that's when it's going to be enough.
nice. Yep.
Yeah.
For sure.
Absolutely.
I can't find a thing wrong with that statement.
I can't either.
But it does.
That's good.
But it does tie into. That's why it is so important to vote yes to renew the ENRTF, because it is providing. And the thing is, like, ENRTF compared to OHF, Outdoor Heritage Fund, really doesn't do all that much land acquisition compared.
Correct.
So you're not even if you hate public land.
Right.
You're not necessarily voting for that with ENRTF. You're just voting for better habitat and more habitat.
Yeah.
Right.
ENRTF is just restoring the lands that already exist, the public lands that already exist.
Yep.
So if you are worried about a land grab, Senator Green, that's not what this funding is there to do.
Right.
Right.
So,
And we hunt the majority of the time, for the most part, is private land butted up against public land.
Public land.
yeah.
And we do enjoy that as well, because you get to enjoy that public land. And then, of course, you have public land hunters who are going to bump deer potentially even more to the private land in a way,
Right.
or in your area.
Those are my favorite type of hunters.
Exactly.
I love those kind. They are helpful. They can be new,
They can be
pains in the ass. But
Yeah. For sure.
Obviously, we accept them.
Yep. Yep.
Just part of public land hunting.
Right.
But that's where I should be careful with saying this, but I won't. Most deer hunters are pretty lazy. Like, they just,
Yes.
your casual
You don't
deer
have to be
hunters
careful.
aren't really willing to work that hard. But man, if you're willing to put any sort of thought or effort or work or walking into it, public land hunting can be a hell of a lot of fun.
Yeah.
Oh, absolutely.
I mean, I've not yet killed a buck on public land in Minnesota, but I kill a doe or two off of public every year and just use bonus tags in my area. I'm fortunate that I get to do that, I know, but work harder than them. Work smarter than them. It's doable.
Oh, my largest buck that killed to date, and I've hunted in Kansas, and was a public land buck.
Yeah.
And actually, my last 3 were all public land. But yeah, the largest buck I've got is a public land, and it was glorious. I know we've told the story before, but it's bigger than both my Kansas deer that I've got.
Yeah, that was a beautiful deer.
Yeah. So
Well,
One of my dad's best friends, they've got a little bit of private land, north central Minnesota, and it butts up to some state forest land, and he has killed some slammers on this piece of state forest land.
Yep.
And it's because he's getting to the spot that nobody else is looking at. And when the guys that do walk in from the other road through what looks good on this public
walk 100 yards.
and then push those deer right to him, he shoots them.
yeah. Well, I'm not going to go as far as to call Minnesota deer hunters lazy. However, I will say that there is evidence to back up somebody who might make that statement. I believe the figure was it was like 89 to 92% of public land hunters in Minnesota never get more than half a mile from their truck.
And this is my biggest thing with all that, though, man. That's fine.
Right. If that's how you want to hunt, that's fine, right?
But do not let me hear you bitching about not seeing deer, that it's all the DNR's fault, or that it was the wolves.
Yep. Right. Or that, there were hunters in the trees to either side of you. Because, they're all going an easy walk from their truck.
Exactly.
We can say that about Ripley.
Right.
Because we go into Ripley, park the truck. I most of the time, just depending on if we're on a ridge or where we were, I could almost see the road and truck to where I found a tree that I thought was great. There was a trail, whatever, but it was a couple hundred yards off the road or wherever.
And that's just kind of par for the course.
It is. Ripley. But then we also had guys that would go back. They'd go a mile in. Mm-hmm. Would they see more deer? Yes and no. Would they see less hunters? Oh, for sure. They saw less hunters.
Here's the flip side of what we were just talking about. Back when I hunted Ripley, we did hunt basically right off the road because the guys that did push all the way in pushed the deer right back around to us.
Right. And that was what was nice about Ripley before is I get that push.
But I feel like Ripley, we've got to that's a microcosm.
It is.
Ripley, how it used to be. Ripley now is going to be a different story. But there were just deer up and moving all the time in Ripley because there were thousands
because they didn't have a choice.
Right.
And where I hunted,
but if we look at public land in general, that's not the case.
That's fair. Right. Yeah.
Right. And where we hunted before was on a plantation, and we'd go back. We were probably back a mile, or I was back about a mile, and then off the main road that came in, I was probably 150 yards. Overlooking a nice opening, whatever else, and guys were moving in behind us, but we get in. And then the other thing is you get in.
Were you the guy that I always used to run into?
No, I ran into a few lever action guys. From Coon Rapids, and I pointed them out a few years.
You got a problem with lever actions?
No, just Coon Rapids.
This is the year of the lever gun.
This is the year of lever gun. Yeah. Mm-hmm. No, it was the guys that would come in. So we're, mainly archery for the most part.
We've been hunting for weeks.
Month and a half almost, at that time. And so Thursday before opener, they'd start bringing their four-wheelers down the trail and setting up their stands or whatever else. So we just quit hunting at that point. And then we come in, opening day. And that was the year I harvested the deer. And I waited, grabbed my four-wheeler, and I'm dragging it out. And this guy comes up and he goes, "Where are you hunting at?" Like, well, just down at the end of the, corridor there or whatever. He goes, "Well, no, that's not what I mean. How long have you been hunting here?" I go, "Well, about a month and a half, and I've been here for 3 years." "Oh, I've been hunting here for 30 years. "Okay, that's great, but let me guess, you just moved in Thursday and you're from Coon Rapids." "Yeah." Nothing against Coon Rapids. Nothing against Coon Rapids at all. But I've been hunting for not 3 months. I guess it'd be a month and a half. Right. Almost 2 months, really. 2 months, you could say at that point. It's like, I've been here day in and day out, every weekend, hunting, knowing these deer, seeing these deer. Dude, you just moved. I saw your four-wheeler. Put your stand up 2 days ago. Get bent, buddy. Right. This is public land. This isn't yours. I don't care if you've been coming here 30 years. It's public. I can hunt here. Oh, and by the way, it's 9:00. You can't be on a four-wheeler, bud. So guess what? Let me just throw my deer on the back here. I'm going to wait till 11, and I'm going to pull it out. You go ahead and take your four-wheeler down the road. Thanks for chasing the deer to me, because I guarantee you did when you drove your happy fat ass in at 8:00.
Well, and one thing that I've noticed too, and I'm not meaning this as a dig on you guys, but I've noticed that
we're about to fight.
The older crowd tends to have more of that mentality.
Who you calling old?
No. I'm saying guys in our age group.
Yeah. Really calling us old?
Older crowd. You're not geriatric. You're just older. But it does seem like the guys that are more likely to pull this is my spot and has been forever, they're usually in that 50 to 70 age range.
We're not in that range, but
Awesome. You guys are good then.
Yeah. All right.
But
They got a few months.
My interactions on public land, and maybe it's just because I don't know, 98% of my public land hunting has been during bow season. It's been pretty overwhelmingly positive because I run into somebody and they'll say, "Where are you going to go?" It's
Yes.
I don't want to get in your way, and no, I don't want to get in your way. So where are we going to go? We'll figure this out.
Yeah.
But yeah, and that's where I think as hunters, there's no place for that, swing and D mentality.
There isn't.
This is my spot. No.
Right.
Get
No.
back,
yeah,
man.
because in that same area, I had somebody leave a note on my
Oh
stand.
my God. Yeah. And your stand was up all season. Actually,
Right.
your stand was up for a year and a half. And this poor bastard.
Your stand had grown into the tree.
It did. I honestly, no, that was my stand. I had to cut the strap. when
Well, we've been
moved
there
them.
for a while.
We've been there a while. And he puts up, why don't you look around before you set up your stand? It's like, dude,
This was here.
Yeah.
I know it was before you.
that same time that he had the note, I had to stand 20 yards. 20 yards. Now, I didn't even just have the peg steps. I had the 20-foot steps, or the whole, not
sticks.
a ladder,
Like
the
the
sticks.
yellow
The
sticks.
20-foot sticks, and just a little portable.
Yep.
He had a ladder stand 10 feet, and it was 20 yards from me. I crawl up in my stand, I'm looking at it going, are you kidding me?
Yeah.
This dude had to walk by. There's no other way but to, because there was a trail. He had to walk by he had to brush up against my steps to bring his deer stand in. And I was like, oh my God, he's a rifle hunter. Nothing against rifle hunters,
But
nothing
you
at
just
all.
know.
But it's like, okay,
It's all,
I'm bow hunting. I'm not coming out here opening day.
Yep.
God, no.
Was his name Steve?
I think it was.
I
thought it was Dick.
It probably was, because that tends to be the case. But my third year rifle hunting, I was hunting down by Hill City, and there's a couple islands that we were on, or that I put my stand on. You had to go 2 islands over, and I put my stand up, chained it up, portable, whatever. It had been up there since, let's see, we probably put it up grouse opener, so bow hunting opener. Didn't hunt it, put a camera out there, a few other spots. But anyways, so I go in opening day. I was like, yeah, sweet. Honestly, it was my first day hunting in Minnesota rifle season. I got all my orange on, I'm loud as hell because the good stuff I had was loud. So I'm walking in, it's like, what is that? That's not my island, but that's orange. Are you kidding me? Seriously. If you look 40 yards behind you, I'm on the edge, my stand, you can see it. So I walk up to this guy and he waves. I go, hey. He's like, how you doing? I go, good. My stand is right there. He turns, he looks at, yep, it is. Yeah. It's been there since September. I go, let me guess. You put it up Thursday. Well, yeah, how'd you know?
Because you're from Coon Rapids.
Rapids. Yep. So needless to say, I sat there for about an hour and a half, and I was just pissed the whole time, dude, because the lane that I had deer coming from or coming
Guessing
right
his
from
stand
his
was
island.
right there.
Yep. They weren't coming up, and I was like, this guy is he's killing me here. So about 10 o'clock, 10:30, I was like, you know what? Screw this. He screwed me. I'm going to be the ass.
Yep.
But I
You
was
are
quiet.
generally
I
the
came
ass,
down
yes.
and I said, I came down at 10:30. I said, dude, I'm out. It's all yours. I said, are you hunting all weekend? He goes, yeah. Okay. I'm not coming back. So
And that's
I didn't go
public
back.
land.
And that's public land. I'll give it that. But it's like, look around.
Yeah.
I mean, it wasn't even truly scouting. I didn't have the shit hidden. It was in a wide open tree, his island, my island. You can see the trail. That was a good trail. And it's like, oh, look, there's a tree stand. That was all we had to do.
And up here, we
get
call
on.
islands and swamps.
Yeah.
Hey, there was some good swamp deer there.
Oh, there. Yeah, I know
Yeah.
exactly what you're talking about
Yeah.
for sure.
Good on you for not making all the noise, taking your stand down, and pissing on his tree.
Because that would have probably been my move.
We're all thinking it.
Yeah.
So
We're not
I
going
gotta
to say
ask.
the second weekend I went back, his stand was gone. Probably a good decision.
I got to ask you guys because that story just it brought something up for me. I know, Jared, you used to live in Colorado, but have you guys hunted out of state much?
A little bit.
Kansas,
I
Illinois,
have seen.
Colorado.
I used to think, maybe this was just naive young person thinking, but when I was in high school, college, I used to think that, like, damn, I bet most deer hunters are pretty smart. They must be pretty good hunters, like, why else would there not be bigger deer and this and that? But after I started hunting public land here and then started hunting out of state, I was like, nope, no, they're not. They really are not. And I have seen some of the dumbest shit I've ever seen on public land out of state. And I hate admitting this, but almost every time it has been somebody with either Minnesota, Wisconsin, or Michigan plates.
We're going to say Wisconsin.
Yeah, let's
for
go
sure.
Wisconsin.
I'm cool with that, but
Well,
Wisconsin.
everyone knows a smart deer hunters, a Minnesota Deer Hunters Association member.
yes.
And they don't do that kind of stuff.
That's
They
right.
do not do that kind of stuff. That's
Yes.
why Dean was polite and just left.
Join MDHA.
He's just like, go ahead and hunt me, bud.
Join MDHA. Don't be an idiot.
Don't be ignorant.
And you know, at that time, I was an MDHA member.
Well, I suppose
I
if
had
you were
just
hunting with
joined.
Josh, yeah.
I did. I just
And that
joined.
thought was in the back of your head when you
Exactly.
didn't rip your stand out and bang it around.
Yeah.
Well, and it was hard for me coming up from private land and what we did as, land management and everything.
Well, the
And
thing I
deer
have to
management.
imagine too with Kansas, man, is there's a lot less people. I mean, the properties are generally just bigger,
Yes.
fewer people. Like that alone had to be kind of a culture shock coming up here where there's a hunter around every third tree at least
Yeah,
sometimes.
exactly. Oh, for sure. It was totally different. And then just the management practices and everything. And what I love is, getting back to your public land, statement and whatnot. It's like, it's not necessarily everybody's brown is down, but it kind of is in certain areas, which in certain areas, it's not that it has to be, but I'm hunting for meat. So brown is down. Perfectly fine. But what I love is those people that are always the ones to say the DNR mismanaging these deer.
It is, man.
Right.
But yet you're the one that shot a spike buck.
What I
or
get
something
so-
every single year.
I know I'm biased in this because I'm fortunate to live in a part of the state where we don't get the winners so frequently like you guys do up here. So it's a little easier for me to say this, but man, everything that I've seen in like west central Minnesota, southeast Minnesota, and what I saw in Texas, if we had the age structure in the deer herd in Minnesota here that Iowa has, people would stop talking about Iowa. I promise you that.
Yeah.
And I'm talking like I was in what they called the golden triangle of South Texas. Most of their yearlings are spikes. I see yearlings every year that 6 points, 8 points, 9, 10 points sometimes, 90-inch yearlings. That's a 200-inch deer at 5 years old, most likely. But he's getting shot at a year.
Yep.
Oh, yeah.
And I don't begrudge anybody that, but you're exactly right, Dean. Like the same guys that are like, oh, DNR fucks everything up and they can't do anything right. They're the same ones that, well, why don't you shoot a doe? Well, you can't eat the horns. Okay. Again, I mean, if you know what, man, you bought the same tag I did. If that's a deer you're happy with, you will never hear me sit
Right.
and shit on you for that.
Right.
If you're happy with that deer, good on you, man. I'm just glad that you're out hunting. Like we need more people that care about that stuff. But if you're going to sit there and say that it's the DNR's fault, when that yearling buck came out chasing a doe and you shot the yearling buck when you could have just as easily and legally shot the doe, I don't want to hear it.
Right.
Right.
Well, and I've shot spike bucks. I've shot,
I have
small
too.
little paddles, whatever. But I'm not the one also saying, God, gee, I don't have a 10-point buck in my area. I don't have a 12-point or an 8-point.
Right.
I know there's not one in the area.
Yeah.
It's not because I've shot all of them when they were spikes, but I'm also not complaining.
Yeah.
I'm going to shoot whatever comes in, whatever legally deer I can take, whether it's a buck or a doe. If it's a legal buck and that's what I can take, again, I can't eat the antlers. I mean, yep, I'll pass it up maybe the first weekend. Say, yeah, I'm going to wait. Maybe there's something on camera or whatever. But you know what? I need deer meat.
I totally hear you,
so
man.
That's what I'm shooting.
You know, and I think we don't need to get too deep down this rabbit hole, but this is just something that, especially the last 5 to 10 years, has really started bumming me out, man, is what a propensity deer hunters have now to just complain.
Yeah.
I mean, and I'm not saying I'm innocent among that either, but I don't know, man. Like my grandpa's the one that really kind of introduced me to this lifestyle. And I look at what he had for deer hunting and what we have now. And if he were still alive, he'd be like, what in the hell are you guys complaining about?
Right.
I mean, don't get me wrong. Not everything is roses and daisies, but it just bums me out because I would rather we all do something about it, whether that's go do a habitat, go volunteer with an MDHA chapter or a Pheasants Forever chapter. They all do habitat projects, or most of them do.
Yeah. Right.
Go donate to an organization like that. Go volunteer for something, like do something about it. Don't just sit there and bitch.
Yeah. Preach, brother. Preach.
I mean, it just bums me out, man. Like, we could get so much more done.
Yeah. Do you want to just stay on that topic for the next 40 minutes?
I mean, I'm cool with it if we need to.
Can you speak louder to the people in the back?
Right.
I don't know, man. And I'm not saying that I never piss and moan about something. Oh, I didn't agree with DNR about that. Like,
Yeah.
I'm not innocent about it, but I at least try to put my money where my mouth is and be a member of all these different organizations and do habitat projects, get out there and get the work on the ground to hopefully make it better.
Right.
Well, speaking of being a member of all organizations, I'm a member of BHA. Well, obviously MDHA. We'll say them first. BHA, National Deer Association, Whitetails Unlimited. I'm not Pheasants Forever. Just I should be, I know I should be, but I don't hunt as much. But their habitat programs are great, and so that's who I'm a member of.
So let me be a hypocrite for 8 seconds here. I don't think I'm an MDHA member, but you should be a Pheasants Forever member.
Let him in.
Right?
Yeah, I don't know.
And that's a prerequisite to even be on this show.
I thought it was, but you guys didn't say anything, so I just walked in.
Well, it's gonna be. It's gonna be.
But what I will say though too is with Pheasants Forever, I have become their biggest proponent, or just a total rah guy with that stuff. I pheasant hunted twice in my life. I don't give a shit about pheasants, dude. I don't cool. If that's what it takes to get money and funding and work on the ground, great. I don't give a shit about pheasants. I give a shit about all the other stuff that they're doing for everything else, we were talking about at the beginning.
Yeah.
And see, that's where BHA really speaks to me as well for the public land and their promotion and stuff like that. So, Jimmy, I know you're a member of
BHA, obviously MDHA.
Yep.
That's all I can think of right now.
Yeah. Well, obviously MDHA, BHA, PF, Pheasants Forever.
God, I wish you weren't an MDHA member, because for all the people trolling you guys online, that would be so goddamn funny. The leader of the organization's not even a member.
No, I am. Trout Unlimited. It's another big one.
Oh, yeah.
I'm proud member of. I feel like there's more.
Yeah, I feel like there's two, but I just can't think of them at the moment.
Yeah. I don't know. But regardless, there are so many amazing conservation organizations.
For sure.
Find the one that speaks to you.
Join up.
Join up.
Volunteer.
Man. I mean,
right. Well, then the other thing is they all do so much, and they all kind of even coexist for the most part too.
Right.
It's the bashing of certain ones that I don't understand either, but
it's not necessary.
It's not, because you can be a member of, like me, I'm a member of 5 different ones. Every one of the organizations, they have the same goal in mind, but different ways to go about it for the most part.
Mm-hmm.
But that's just the way it is. I mean, that's no different than in our daily lives.
Yeah, exactly. Like myself, I've tried to be a member of the organizations that are focusing on the things that I care about, which, again, I'm going to be a hypocrite there, because you guys, I want you guys to talk me into being an MDHA member tonight. I don't think you'll have.
We'll get you.
take me out back
Dean
with
wears
a
first slate.
I thought you were going to take me out back with pillowcases filled with bars of soap or something.
Oh, we have to.
Man.
We use something heavier than bars of soap.
But like, you know, I am not a wealthy guy. Like, I don't come from money. I don't have a lot of money, but to me, it's what I care about. And it's important to me to be members of these different organizations because I do see on the ground the difference that it makes. And like you said, Jared, if money's tight for you, like at home, I'm not going to be like, oh yeah, give all your money to a conservation organization. But if there's one that does speak a little more to you, join up, man, because it does make a difference.
It really does.
100%.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So let's go into this. Jared, why should Ryan be a member of MDHA?
Because we're awesome.
True story.
I mean, how can you argue with that,
Well,
dude?
we all three work there, right?
Right.
No,
Honestly,
I mean-
the door's locked until you sign up.
Sorry, you can't leave.
No, I don't think there's a topic that we've covered tonight that MDHA is not actively working on. You know, we talk habitat. We have restored or acquired and donated back to be public land. We're coming up on 100,000 acres of,
No shit.
of public land just in the state of Minnesota.
Right.
We talked about a lot of legislative stuff here.
Yeah.
You know, we do so much legislative work at the Capitol. We have a full-time lobbyist that works on behalf of our members. And that's a big part of it is if you're a member of MDHA, you get a vote. Your voice matters. It tells us what we should advocate for, how we should vote on certain issues or topics. And then we just recently touched on the youth aspect and how we kind of have this lack of hunters that are coming into this tradition of living off the land, protecting the land. And that's a big part of what we do. We've sent
Well, because you guys still do all the forkhorn camps too, right?
Yeah. Over 16,000 kids have gone through our forkhorn camps, got their firearm safety, learned, you know, the basics of wilderness skills, survival, ecology. Yeah, they're really taking up the mantle of being that next generation of environmental stewards. And we really can't do that work without every member that supports us in that mission. We love what we do.
Absolutely.
And I truly do feel that we are here for, obviously, we look through the lens of one species, being the white-tailed deer, but what's good for one species benefits all. And that's how we live our lives, and that's the work we do.
Yep.
And I think from my perspective, you know, growing up in central Minnesota, like I'm not ignorant to MDHA. Like there's banquets around me. Actually, I'm pretty sure my dad and his buddies are members and they go to their local banquet. But if there's one thing that pissed me off all the time, it's that the local banquet's like the end of October. And I'm like, what are you doing?
Yeah.
But no, I think from my perspective, it was always kind of that MDHA is like, oh, that's kind of for the guys up north, which in a sense, I can see why I thought that because, I mean, it started here, right?
Right.
Yeah. So, you know, it's, and it started from, you know, honest, good intentions too. You know, it was no different than any of the other organizations we'd mentioned. So I think that was always kind of one of my hangups was like, it seemed like it was more guys up north that had problems with the wolves or they wanted more deer feeding. But, you know, the more I've read and, you know, the more we've talked, it's like, it's so much more than that.
It is. Yeah. And so you're right. We did start here in Grand Rapids. We're still headquartered here, but we have 60 chapters around the state, 20,000 members around the state. And the vast majority are in the southern part of the state.
Are they
I was
really?
going to say, you know,
Yeah.
you'd be surprised.
No
Once
shit.
you get past Brainerd,
Yeah.
that is the
Really?
majority of our membership.
Our largest chapter, Winona, Minnesota.
Really? Huh. Well, and it's interesting you say that though, because like just listening to my dad and his buddies talk about their banquet, I mean, it's several hundred people
Oh, yeah.
at their, I don't even remember which chapter it is. It's one around me there. There's a few,
Yeah.
but it's like, holy shit. Like, you just don't think that that's where they're going to be, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
But I mean, yeah. So, I mean, what do you guys typically do? Like, what types of habitat? Is it kind of a statewide effort for you guys with habitat projects and things like that?
So it really depends. I mean, as you know, we're a big state, a lot of diverse
states.
Yep. With public land that has varying needs, restoration needs. And so that's where we work. Well, our grants coordinator, Kim Washburn, she reaches out to all of our chapters all the time and encourages them. Let's say, well, you would probably be either central Minnesota or like Stickney Hills chapter.
Actually, you would be closer to, I want to say how close are you to Paynesville?
Close enough. That's the one. That's where the banquet is.
Tri-County River Bottom Bucks.
That's where the banquet is.
River Bottom Bucks. There you go.
Yep.
So Kim would reach out to Tri-County and say, find a WMA around you. Talk to the land manager. Find out what it needs, right? Maybe it needs bud capping to get through the winter. Maybe it needs wildlife openings. Maybe it needs some woody browse regeneration.
Do you guys do burning at all?
So we don't personally, but when we get grant funding, we then reach out to contractors to do the work. Burn permits are
this state sucks for burning, man.
Subject, especially when you start looking at the insurance side of things. But
so that we could spend hours on, but this state, we need so much more fire on the ground in this state, even up in this area. We need so much more fire on the ground than we are getting. And it's unfortunate because I think a lot of the legal hoops that we struggle to jump through now and the insurance hoops that are there exist because of a few really shitty instances in the past.
Yep.
And it makes it so much harder to get safe and prescribed, trained fire on the ground.
Yep. No, you're absolutely right. But kind of the moral of what I was saying is not only does every dollar that MDHA raise go back into the state of Minnesota, we really do the hyper local level. So if you've got Tri-County that identifies this WMA that needs this project done to enhance that habitat, we can get the funding. We can make that project happen. And you as deer hunter Joe can have a vote, have a say in what that project should be, can contribute, can be boots on the ground and help out with that project and literally improve the public land in your own backyard. And there's not very many organizations out there that can say the same.
No.
Right.
No, he'd be Deer Hunter Ryan.
Deer Hunter,
right.
Wow. That's right.
Well,
I was just saying in general. Deer Hunter Ryan.
So, after hearing all that, you signing up on that phone right there?
I'm working on it.
I know, dude. I was trying to log in here on my computer, and it seems to be extremely slow right now.
I thought he was being rude and just ignoring
no.
him.
I figured he was on a mission.
That's what I was doing. But yeah.
I'm getting there. Just give me a second.
I hope your phone's faster than my computer
trying
right now.
Yeah. See, I have faith in him. I knew he was doing something good.
Yeah.
He's like, yeah.
So I need some verification on this, but unless I am a lot blinder than I think I am, I believe I am now signed up.
Ooh, dear Ryan Rothstein, welcome to the Minnesota Deer Hunters Association.
Boom.
Oh, we got to
Look
put
at
him
that.
through the initiation now.
Look at that.
But peep that membership level too, though.
What is it? I know. Where is it?
That's a 3-year.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Oh, dedicated.
There we go.
Dedication.
You've got me for 3 years. Don't disappoint me.
it.
I love it.
Yep.
Well, here's the thing. Now that you're a member, you get to tell me how to do my job. So if I disappoint you,
ahead. Start now.
That means you're disappointing yourself.
We don't need to bring my wife into this. She'll tell me that.
Oh, that's great. We're happy to have you as a member and glad you
absolutely.
joined. So
Right.
Yeah.
Well,
appreciate it.
the more I talk to you guys too, I mean, it really has dispelled a lot of those, I don't want to say myths, but just my personal perceptions of like, oh, that's kind of an up north. That's the good old boys, deer hunters. That's up north. Like, yeah, I'm sure there are So I'm not an employee of MDHA, so I can say this, but I'm sure there are some members that kind of are like that in certain areas. But clearly, the work you guys are doing on the ground is speaking for itself, because that's, I mean, as soon as we start talking public lands and habitat projects, and you guys are all for it, you sold me. I mean, that's what matters at the end of the day.
Yeah, well, that's great to hear, and that's truly what I believe is that anyone who lives in the state, whether they're a deer hunter or not, there is something that our organization does that means something to you, whether it's habitat for hunting or birding or
Any type of recreation,
foraging
really.
or
Access.
hiking. Yeah, just going out and spending time in the woods. I think they call it nature bathing these days.
Yeah, I don't know what the term is,
But or the education side of things, like we truly believe in quality education for all youth, especially when it comes to our ecological resources, our environmental landscape, and how best to engage or interact or preserve or enhance that landscape.
See, I dig that, man, because I look at my cohort, like my age group, and man, the people that aren't in this field with me, I'm like, our education system has failed. Like, and it's not necessarily their fault. I mean, we don't as a society necessarily prioritize that environmental or ecological education, but God damn it, it is so important. I mean, we don't live without it.
right. Especially Minnesota, where it's so important.
Yeah.
Well, it's kind of just in our blood,
Right.
I don't know why. I don't know what it is about this state that we just seem to be more proud of that than a lot of other areas. But
Yes.
man, it matters.
Absolutely.
It matters because our quality of life is better for it. And not only that, our hunting is better for it.
That's
right.
I mean, again, if all you care about is that hunting aspect, great, your hunting's better for it. But even, average Joe that lives in North Minneapolis, your quality of life is better because of the conservation ethic that we have here in Minnesota. And that is huge, because talk about going beyond just a mission statement for one organization. I mean, that's impacting everybody's life.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
I don't care if you work on Wall Street or Sesame Street. If you are environmentally literate, you're going to do good work, and we need that in every sector of this economy.
And this is one thing that I should put in here before I forget. Every single time I end up at a conference with wildlife managers or habitat managers, without any shred of a doubt, what's going to come up is people want to work in this state, like in the wildlife field, in the natural resources field, because of the programs we have in place, because of the ethic that's here. Yep. We are a destination for people that go into ecology or biology or natural resources or wildlife management because of the funding sources we have, because of the ethic we have. So it matters.
It does.
Yeah, it for sure does.
Yeah, 100%. So vote yes in
On
November.
ENRTF.
RTF. That would be a yes.
Yes.
vote.
Just remember that. Yes.
Yes.
Don't even read it. Just vote yes.
Just say yes.
If you
Yes to habitat.
If
say
you
yes.
forget to vote, it counts as a no.
Yeah, so just vote yes.
Yes.
Yes. If you hunt fish, get out there and vote yes. Ignore the rest, 'cause whatever.
Yeah, honestly, I don't give a shit if you don't fill out the rest of your ballot.
Right.
Just fill
Just
out
that one
that
thing
yes.
will make a
You can
difference.
ignore
Who do you want
everything
for
else.
president? ENRTF.
Right. Yes.
That's awesome.
I do want to touch back on wolves, though.
Oh,
Yeah.
yes.
Yeah.
And I don't know where we want to go with this necessarily, but during a break here, we mentioned the Voyagers project, and I don't want to overstep my bounds here, guys, because I come from just shy of wolf country. So, I want to be sensitive to the people that do live and hunt in wolf country, because it does matter. I mean,
Absolutely.
it's not an insignificant factor, but from the ecological perspective, I have to say, listening to the Voyagers project episode, the biggest thing that I take away from the situation that we're at here in Minnesota is that from a strictly biological, ecological perspective, we don't necessarily need wolf management, because they are an apex predator in the sense that if the prey supply was limited, they would take care of themselves, as in they have a finite bounds that they can get to. But, going back to what Tom was saying in that episode, that's where kind of these human perspectives come into play of this is, and this doesn't just apply to wolves. This applies to so many things, but we as humans have done a good enough job of effing up pretty much every natural ecosystem that almost nothing can be unmanaged at this point without, wolves are a good example here in Minnesota, just for no other reason than they clearly do have some impact on our deer herds, probably the moose herd too.
Absolutely.
It's not as simple as that, but it is a factor.
Yep.
Yeah. No, I mean, like you said, from a purely ecological, biological perspective, let's put wolves in a petri dish here, right? And run an experiment. There's really no issue, right? But we don't live in a petri dish.
Absolutely not.
So we can't just look at the ecological perspective. We have to look at the anthropological, the economic. We have to look at all of these different facets of the wolf issue and make an informed decision. And my biggest, I'm going to call it a complaint about the wolf, right, is why are we putting one species up on this pedestal? Like the gray wolf, from an ecological perspective, does that serve more of a role or a purpose or you name it within our ecosystem than a cricket?
Well,
they
let's
play their own roles.
Let's even stay in the apex predator realm.
Sure.
Black bear,
Yeah.
Right.
Canada lynx, cougar. Pre-European settlement, we had all of these things, not necessarily everywhere, but relative abundance. I mean, look at Little House on the Prairie. They talk about cougars in Wisconsin like it was common.
Right.
And we just do not have that now. So
Right.
it is a very modern problem, if you want to call it that wolves have been elevated to this status of fluffy.
Yep.
What's the term that the meat eater guys use all the time?
Charismatic
megafauna.
Yeah.
There you
Yeah,
go.
there you go.
Charismatic megafauna.
Yep.
I don't
They're
know.
easy to rally behind.
They are. And I don't know what, this is something that I've talked with a lot of different folks about. I think the reason that we care, I say we in the entirely global sense, but I think the reason we care so much about them is because they were the one predator that wasn't really extirpated. As in, if we still had cougars, if we had a breeding cougar population in this state, in the Great Lakes states, they would probably be to the same status.
Yeah.
But we are now 2 to 4 generations removed, people-wise, from those species being prevalent here to where it was a common thing.
Yeah. No, I think that's a good point. It is. I think something that Minnesota should take pride in is the fact that we are the only state in the lower 48 that has always had an endemic population of gray wolves.
Yeah.
Right.
Like that's a big deal, right?
Yep.
But at the same time, we have these target population numbers that have been
Surpassed for 25, 30 years.
decades now.
Since the late 80s.
Right. But then we have this charismatic creature, charismatic megafauna, right? And that's my issue with you look at the World Wildlife Fund. You guys know what animal is on their logo? The giant panda.
Oh, yeah.
Find a more useless animal on this planet. Like, what does that contribute to the ecological landscape, to sustainability, to the benefit of multiple species? The panda is a species that, I'm going to be blunt here, should have gone extinct generations ago.
It's so
right?
pretty.
But it's so
It's a
cute.
lucky species.
It's easy to rally behind. It gets all this funding, and I think we're falling into that same trap with the gray wolf.
What bothers me the most, I'll just strictly put my biologist hat on here. What bothers me the most about that is that we are sacrificing energy on the gray wolf when that could go towards moose. That bothers the shit out of me because that is demonstrably a species in this state in particular that needs more attention than the wolf does.
Absolutely.
And that's what bugs me. But the other side of it being that when you talk about, I mean, I've struggled with this because one of the suits within the last decade that put the wolves back on the ESA list, the premise was that they haven't been fully restored to their historic range.
Yep.
My opinion is there's a hell of a lot of good habitat in their historic range where they're not. Let's start reintroducing them. I mean, from a strictly ecological sense, that is a keystone predator. That is a top of the food chain predator. There's a lot of good habitat in the Western Dakotas. There should be wolves there. There should probably be grizzlies there.
Yeah.
I mean, look at the Smoky Mountains, look at the Ozark Mountains. These are all areas where historically wolves were probably fairly abundant.
Yeah.
Why don't we start reintroducing those?
Right. And why are we putting all of this time, effort, and money into protecting the population that we currently have in Minnesota, which is well above where it was designed to be, rather than these other locations? And why aren't we focusing some of these efforts on other species that should be restored in Minnesota? I mean, look at the caribou.
Right.
Oh,
I would love to see some caribou.
That'd be amazing.
Let's even go way smaller than that. This is what pisses me off more than anything. Let's pick on the Center for Biological Diversity in particular.
I would love to.
From their name alone, that is a worthy cause, if that is the actual goal.
Yep.
That is not the actual goal, because if that was their goal, they wouldn't be spending millions of dollars on wolves, on lawsuits for wolves, on lawyers for wolves. They would be spending those for Leonard skipper, Dakota skipper, Assiniboine skipper, these butterfly species that are, and I don't mean to sound fatalistic with this, but it is to that point. Like I've talked with enough DNR ecologists about these species to know in Minnesota, they are hanging by a literal thread.
Yep.
And they don't give a shit about that.
Yeah.
But they will fight tooth and nail for the wolf.
Well, that's where the money is. I mean, it is. Those butterflies aren't charismatic,
Yeah.
Which is sad because they are an indicator of their habitat.
Right.
We talk so much about habitat tonight. You look at that prairie habitat, whether it's for deer, pheasants, songbirds, that shit all matters.
Yeah,
absolutely.
But they do not care about that.
Right.
They care about the individual, and that is the antithesis of species management.
They care about marketing, and that's where it is. It's easier
Yes.
to market a pretty wolf face than it is an insect's face.
Right.
Yes.
Well, and then their whole bias of it was just totally wrong because they said the wolf didn't hit its historic range. Jeez, can't talk.
Well, neither have the
Historic
bison.
range, right? So it's like, but
most
yet,
things.
so because it hasn't hit all the way down to Missouri, even though the population is more than what it should be way up north, it just hasn't extended that far yet. But so their bias is totally wrong.
It's
Their
the
information's
range.
wrong. Yeah.
The range.
The range doesn't exist anymore.
Current historical range.
The
we will
continuity
never
of the habitat is not there.
Right.
No,
So
it's
we
not.
have to look at current habitable range.
Yes.
Right. And if we look at current habitable range right now, we're not too far off. Yes, we could. We could
in
hit
Minnesota,
the Dakotas.
we're pretty close.
Minnesota, we're there.
Yeah.
I mean,
I have never once had a wolf on my trail camera in central Minnesota, and it shocks me because I know they're close. Ripley is 45 miles tops.
yeah.
And I've not yet had a wolf. And trust me, if you try to step foot on properties that I have access to, I'll get your picture. I'm a junkie for trail cameras, but I have not yet had a wolf. So we are really close to the maximum sustainable or suitable habitat for wolves in this state.
Yeah.
But I mean, that's the hard part in this anthropocenic environment that we live in. To go from I know I have a buddy that used to work for the Nature Conservancy in Holly, Minnesota, prairie country.
Yep.
There was a wolf pack up there. But to get from Holly, Minnesota to Theodore Roosevelt National Park in western North Dakota is a hell of a long way. And there's a lot of ag land in between that's just not suitable habitat.
Right.
I mean, that's the hard part in the modern environment.
Right.
Right. And that's what those organizations like the Center for Biological Diversity should be working towards, is improve the habitat so these animals can expand.
Right. But they're not.
Right.
They're relying on us, organizations like us, to restore the habitat, to try to contend with all of this habitat loss and more importantly, this habitat fragmentation.
Yeah, that's what it is.
In order for them to be able to grow these charismatic populations to levels that they would like to see, and then have the habitat that that
it's like they're magically going to go from northern Minnesota to North Dakota.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So to talk to your point about you haven't seen a wolf on your cameras at all, I just logged into Wolf Report, and so I see Richmond here, and just south of Cold Spring, north of you, looks like just north of Cold Spring, there's a picture of a wolf sighting, and actually south of you, Eden Valley.
I'd buy that.
There's a picture of a wolf.
There's
and
one
over
thing.
by Fairhaven as well.
I buy that. There's one thing. There's an important piece of context there that I think we should add. Almost certainly, those are juvenile males exploring new territory.
For sure. Yeah, because I look south of St. Cloud, in your general area, and there's only about 4 different sightings.
I don't doubt it,
2
man.
hours. Yeah.
I don't doubt it. Like, there certainly have been those exploratory wolves. The other thing I would say about that is I've noticed people in my area have this really bad tendency to, we got wolves, big wolf. No, that's a coyote in February when it's fully fluffed out. But no, I don't discount that. There are certainly those exploratory males. And, realistically, when I look at so I'm from Stearns County, there are pockets in Stearns County that would be suitable wolf habitat if they get there.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
But it kind of goes back to, there are a lot of human-caused disturbances that they have to cross in front of to be able to get to that point still.
Yeah.
As I'm looking at this map, a lot of those sightings are on Highway 23 or relatively close to that once you get south of that Mora area. Mm-hmm. So it's kind of unique. So a Wolf Report is definitely something to look at, because that also, kind of tells us a little bit of where that wolf range is extended.
It just shows you that they can sometimes use man-made corridors too when there's not those natural ones left.
Correct.
What's cool about that too, and I commend you guys for the work you've put into that for no other reason than that is a really cool citizen science project, and I hope at some point that data comes into consideration with DNR management.
Right.
And I think it will.
Right.
Well, I will say thank you, and I will fully take credit for Jim's work on that.
Yes, he will. Yes, he will.
But the other thing I would say about that, though, and I mean this in sincerity, is that speaking of that corridor stuff, there have been a lot of studies on the West Coast, like British Columbia, where woodland caribou used to be there too. Mm-hmm. And they did find that wolves were using these man-made corridors, and it directly led to
the demise
of these woodland caribou populations. They were that sensitive to wolves having that much of a leg up. And I think that speaks to this bigger ecological picture that we don't know everything yet.
Right.
There's a lot we're still finding out.
Oh, God.
I mean, we know a lot more than we did 20 years ago, and certainly more than 100 years ago.
Yeah, we still vote for people like Green.
You mean to tell me we've studied them
Senator
for this
Dick?
long, and we just can't explain to why we can't hunt them yet?
Yeah,
I mean, know why?
So to
What
me,
more do we have to study?
well, that's what I hope something like Wolf Report is able to help corroborate, is that wolves are taking advantage of some of these anthropogenic changes. Mm-hmm. I mean, that's a big deal from a habitat perspective, an ecological perspective, a management perspective. That all plays into the game.
Yeah.
100%.
Yeah.
Wolves, man.
Wolves, man.
Man. Let's manage them.
We definitely need
What
to.
do you mean by
What do you mean
support
by
wolf management?
Yeah, we got
What do
that
you mean,
question a lot
Sharon?
at
What do you
Sports
mean
Show.
by MDHA supports wolf management?
Yeah, what does that mean?
Well, have you ever seen a wolf in a suit sitting behind a desk?
Yeah, Steve Green.
I don't know if he's a wolf. He's a something. It's funny. Yeah.
I'm just saying that dude has done more to harm the hunting culture of this state than he's ever helped and ever will help.
Yeah, the guy's
by
against
far.
public land in Minnesota, northern Minnesota. That's not very Minnesotan of him.
I will
It's not.
I will not tell you that you should or should not vote for him.
Right.
But I will tell you, support the ENRTF.
Yes.
And
Vote
he
yes.
does
Oh,
not.
yes.
And he does not.
He does not.
He
support
will
it.
vote no.
That is,
Don't be Steve Green. Vote yes.
That's right.
Oh, man.
Yeah, I've met the guy. I don't think he's. Well, I know he's not right on this topic. So,
Dude,
yes.
I've never met him and I don't like him just from what I've read in outdoor news.
Trust me,
Like
dude.
I've met him too many times.
I feel like I'm a pretty amicable guy. Like I can get along with a lot of people, but just from what I've read in outdoor news, I'm like, fuck this guy.
Yeah, and I've met him, sat down, had a discussion with him, and that. Yeah.
And you came away with the same impression.
And I'd honestly never really heard of him before that discussion. And I went in there with an open mind. Hey, let's just have a discussion. And yeah, he surprised me.
There are just those people you will never win.
Nope.
And I don't have a good answer for that. But
Yeah.
just recognizing that they're part of the spectrum and you got to be thinking of the whole spectrum when it comes
Right.
to all
He's
this
definitely
stuff.
part of the spectrum. How do you argue against public land? That means he has a right to it. We all have a right to it.
Well, I will say this coming from like the border of farm country, and maybe we can include this. So I actually reached out to my personal senator, Jeff Howe, and I emailed him because I saw he voted against the ENRTF bill this last year. And I was kind of curious about that because he's been a fairly staunch supporter, I would say, of hunters' rights and just hunters' causes. So I asked him, I'm like, this just seems out of context for you to vote against something like that. And to his credit, to be honest, when I reach out, I'm big on this. Like all these people that piss and moan out in the world, I'm like, well, contact your representative, senator, whatever.
Yep.
So I try to practice what I preach. And to his credit, I expect crickets from these guys, right? Like they've got bigger fish to fry than me. Who the fuck am I? But he reached out to me with a phone call and he left me a voicemail and he kind of explained his position and I didn't agree with it. But his position was more or less that organizations like Pheasants Forever are able to acquire land through things like ENRTF. And it's competing against young farmers that can't afford the land. Now, I could go on a long tangent about that because that's not 100% accurate, but at least he was able to give me a position statement.
Right.
And at least able to defend his vote. And honestly, I'm hoping to talk to him about that more in the future.
Right.
Steve Green doesn't try that hard.
No. Well,
Go
go
ahead.
ahead.
Oh, all right.
Jinx.
That
was cute.
that was. The one cool
Valentine's
thing
dinner?
is Day on the Hill, to where you get to talk to your representative.
Right.
Yeah.
So that's where we
Is that open to any MDHA member?
It is.
Absolutely.
Yep.
One of you, please shoot me an email
We will.
because
getting
I would be glad to show up.
Yeah. Day on the Hill is going to look a little bit different for the next 2 years, just because there's a lot of construction at the Capitol. So we can't really reserve the spaces that we've had in the past. So it'll be probably 3 days on the Hill this year, like northern part, center, south part of the state. And just kind of those one-on-one meetings with your senators and reps.
But that's still huge.
It's
though.
huge.
Oh,
It's
it
huge.
is.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah,
really is.
You'll definitely get an email about how to get signed up for that.
And you'll definitely be in our loop.
Well, because that's the thing, man. Like, I'm a nobody. Like, cool. I have a column in Outdoor News. Like, I'm talking to you guys.
You're on Down the Barrel. You're somebody.
I'm hoping this launches my career because you guys are a big deal.
You got a world tour in your future.
It definitely, if it didn't launch yours, it launched ours.
Yeah. Start.
I don't think it hurt anybody's.
No.
But it might.
Not yet.
Yeah. You don't know what I'm going to say. I mean, we're not done yet, but I mean, that's the thing. Like, I'm a nobody. I don't expect anybody to listen to me, but I am always happy to show up. And at least I like to think I'm educated enough to give decent opinions
Right.
to people that can make decisions.
Yeah.
And the thing is, like, these guys at the Capitol that make these decisions, they affect me too, because they affect the amount of funding that I get to do habitat projects down on the ground.
Right. And I'd say, yeah, it's great to meet those representatives and senators, because you might find out what they actually really believe, like you did, Deano, because he is actually technically.
You should take him out for Valentine's dinner.
Right, dude. You met him, you understand him. Now you know for sure if you're going to vote for that guy or not.
Yeah. Well,
And then it solidified my, when we met with your senator,
Icorn, yeah.
It solidified everything that I have always thought of him and everything else, that he is a stand-up guy. He believes in what he says and what he does. And it's one of those things to where out of the whole day, I was impressed with him more than anybody, just because
He listens.
And he was willing, and not many are, to go across party lines to get done what needs to be done.
Yeah, that's
That
a lot
was
of the
the
people we
biggest
talked to was
takeaway
like,
from the day.
forget it.
Yeah.
It's like a,
They don't do
seventh
this.
grader.
I don't do this for them. It's like, come on.
Well, and
you guys are
that's,
fighting the same fight.
You're an adult.
Yeah.
So-
And that's something that I wish more people would understand and take advantage of.
Right.
Is, yeah, we vote these people into office,
Yeah.
but they're, until you show up to an event like MDHA Day on the Hill, they are a name on a piece of paper.
Right.
You have no idea what that person
Who
is
they
actually
really are.
like. Call them. Try to set up a meeting. If you can't get a meeting, not a great sign.
Well,
If
it
you
should
can
influence
get a
your
meeting-
vote.
Exactly.
Right.
If you can get a meeting, that's great.
Yeah.
Right.
Have that meeting and use that to inform
Right.
your vote. Use that to advance the issues that matter to you. But don't just check a box.
Right. And I guess I have
done
to
your
give a
deal.
shout
man.
out to Acorn. Is he was not there that day. So we could not
Yeah.
get a meeting with him.
But he called you, right?
No, one of his assistants called him and said, "Hey,
Okay.
your constituents are there."
Yeah.
Yeah.
He stopped what he was doing
He
up
was
here in Grand
plowing
Rapids
snow in Grand
and
Rapids.
had a call with us.
Yeah.
That's cool as shit, man.
Yeah.
Right.
That's
He
good.
stopped
That's cool
his
as
truck
shit.
from plowing and took our phone call.
And we
over
talked to him for a
speakerphone.
good 45 minutes.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
And it's one of
That's
those things
cool as
where
shit.
where I understand I'm not going to agree with everything.
Well, no.
That
No.
We
my
don't have to,
senator
though.
or
Right.
even with our organization, and or the DNR, you're not going to agree with everything.
I don't even like you.
Exactly. But you know what? We can coexist.
We do. We have a
We do.
We can
podcast
sew you
together.
two together.
Right. Well, it'd take one hell of a thread, but
But I mean, that's the thing, though. Like, I know this is an election year, and I don't want to make anything political, but at the same time, it's like so many people get sucked into this partisan bullshit.
Oh my God.
And it's
yes.
like, for Christ's sake, look at what they actually are like as a person, and look at what they actually vote for.
Right.
Especially, again, nationally, I really don't give a shit who you vote for.
Right.
Statewide, countywide, that's where it matters.
It's
Right.
going to have a much more direct impact on your life.
Big time.
Yep.
And it's not as flashy. It's not the stuff you're going to read on Facebook or
Right.
Google News or whatever you use. But
Yeah.
that's the kind of thing where at least like look at what they're like as a person. I mean, look at, I don't know. I have a representative up for election this year. I'm probably going to try to talk to her at some point, and she may blow me off. Fine. Well,
Right.
that speaks volumes to me.
Yeah.
If my vote is not worth enough for at least one of your staff to reach out to, well, you told me all I need to know.
Absolutely.
Yep. And maybe that's something that that we don't do enough of. Is we maybe take it for granted. We don't talk to our politicians enough, our elected officials, to even get our opinions or our voice across. Maybe we
As
don't
hunters,
we don't do that enough. But that's where an organization like MDHA, be it any organization,
any of them,
does for you.
Right.
What I will say though too, we as organizations, as conservation organizations, and I alluded to this in that piece for the NRTF, organizations are great at getting things done on the ground, horseshit at telling people about it.
Yeah.
And it's hard though, right? Because how do you reach anybody these days? Like there are so many media channels, whether that's online, print, email. I mean, it's a million of them, but we're so good at getting things done, but so bad at telling people like, this is why it matters.
Yeah.
And like, if I do anything through my column with Outdoor News, that's what I'm hoping to do, is like at least shed some light on all the good things that are happening as a result of, you're a Ducks Unlimited member or a PF member, MDHA member. This is where your dollars went. Yeah. Something good happened because of that.
Well, you're absolutely correct. And that is 100% why we hired Jim is, I think that's what your job description says is we do great work. We don't tell anyone about it.
Right.
Go spread the word.
Right.
Yeah, exactly.
So that's what we're trying to do.
That's the mission.
Bring it above the partisan bullshit. Like, why are you loyal to one or the other party? Like,
why are you loyal to a politician?
Exactly.
Yes.
Like, what do you care about in your daily life? Like, for me, it is habitat. It is wildlife. It is the things I see on the ground. Like, that is what matters to me. And I'm going to vote for people that will generally support that. I don't give a shit what letter they have next to their name.
Right.
Well, exactly.
And I feel like if we all, as sportsmen, outdoors people, if we all had that mentality, we might be a little better off for it.
I agree. And the problem is to vote beyond the letter next to the name. It takes work.
It does.
And that's where I think that work can be a little bit prohibitive for a lot of people. But if you join an organization like MDHA or PF or DU that has a strong advocacy aspect to the work that they do, they can do a lot of that work for you. They can give you the information that you need on the candidates, on the issues, on the ballot measures, and you can vote there, and then they can go out, boots on the ground, advocate at the Capitol on your behalf.
It's another reason that I'm such an ardent Pheasants Forever supporter, because they do have a strong lobbying arm.
Yep.
And it's why I did a 3-year deal for MDHA, because knowing there's that lobbying arm, I hate politics. God damn it, I hate it. But
me too.
It is a vital, if you want to see things done how you feel they should be done, it is necessary.
Got to be engaged.
And the fact that MDHA has a law, I did not know that. So what was it again? You have a full-time lobbying person?
Yes, Eric Simonson is our lobbyist. Does great work.
That's huge, though. Yeah. I mean, that's the person that's on the Hill talking to these people every day to advance these interests. And we all hate it. I don't think there's anybody in the organization or any organization that would say, oh, yeah, that's my favorite part. But, but it is a necessary part if you want your voice heard, if you want what you care about to matter when it comes to the policy.
Yep.
And again, MDHA, all the PF, all these organizations are great. They cannot get a whole lot done without the policy being in place to allow them to get those things done.
Correct.
Right.
So are we once again making a call to vote yes on the NRTF?
Yes. On your ballot this November.
Yep. A non-vote is a no vote.
Right. So vote yes.
All right. I feel like we hammered that home.
Yes.
Well, I'd hope so.
That's a worthy point to hammer home, though, man.
It really is. It really is.
This is the thing for me. Like 5 years ago, I didn't know really about any of that stuff, and I was kind of one of the blissfully ignorant and happy. But then I realized like, oh, wow, that has a way bigger impact than you'd give it credit for. And God damn, man, it matters. Like, vote for that.
Yeah.
I don't care what your politics are. If you care about the outdoors, that's a worthy yes
no-brainer.
vote. It is.
No-brainer.
It should be.
Yep.
Vote yes.
Vote yes.
So you need
And with
to know.
that note, we appreciate you coming on, Ryan.
Yeah. Thanks for having me, guys.
Yeah.
If you want to find me, northwindoutdoors.com is where you can find me. We are going to drop our podcast next week, the Eco Hunter podcast. So if you have any interest in hearing me spew more bullshit, that's where you can find it.
Absolutely.
But I really appreciate you having me on, guys.
Yeah.
No, thanks for making the
Thank you very
drive.
much.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Tell your wife thank you for letting you out of the hotel.
Yeah.
We'll
Yeah,
see how
thanks
much
for-
trouble I'm in when I
Right.
get back.
Thanks for coming on, and be sure to check out Wolf Report and MDHA.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Thank you, Ryan.
Thanks, guys.
Yeah, thanks a lot.
Appreciate it.
The Minnesota Deer Hunters Association has been building our hunting and conservation legacy over the past 40 plus years through habitat, education, advocacy, and legislation in Minnesota for Minnesota.
The Minnesota Deer Hunters Association and wolf.report proudly sponsor this podcast. However, please note that the opinions, topics, and guests featured may not necessarily align with the views, beliefs, goals, or mission of our sponsors.